Your last name,
Yes.
Petrucci, what part from Italy is it from?
It's from Naples. My father's family was from Naples, and my mom's family's from Sicily.
And when did they move both families? When did
Both
they move?
families? A few generations ago. My parents grew up in Brooklyn, and their parents, like my mom's father, was from Italy, so he came over. But on my father's side, they also lived in Brooklyn, and then their parents came over from Italy. So it's, I guess, a few generations back.
And was it important while growing up your Italian ancestry, or?
Yeah, it's funny. Like on my mom's side, they were Sicilian fishermen, and they brought that business to America, and her brother had a shop at the fish market on Fulton Street in New York City, and that was a big part of of their lives, and even during holidays and Christmas, they'd bring all the fish in on Christmas Eve and stuff like that. And then, like I said, just them being Brooklyn Italians and that whole thing was very, it was a very big part of our upbringing and our traditions and culture, for sure.
What language did you speak at home?
English.
English. Okay.
Yeah, I never learned Italian.
No.
No.
Okay. Music-wise, what sort of music did your mom and dad play for you while growing up?
You know what? It wasn't like a huge music house. That's the irony. There was, I remember having, of course, records, and then the 8-track player. And my father had, he was into Paul McCartney and Wings. That was something he was into, and Elvis and stuff like that. I mean, things that didn't really end up being a huge musical influence on me until I became a teenager and started hanging out with my friends, and they'd start to turn me on to things. Older cousins, older brothers of friends. That's how I first found out about Yes and Rush and things like that. And just where I grew up in New York, the local radio station, they played a lot of rock and roll, and there was like a Sunday night metal station, and I got a lot from that. So in the household, there wasn't a ton of music going on.
But did they play Italian music in the house?
No, they didn't. This one album I remember that they had in their collection was called Petrucci, and it was the first printer of music was Petrucci back a long time ago. So they had the album with all this music in it. I'm not sure if I ever listened to it.
But was it some sort of family maybe, or?
I'm sorry?
No, you said the album. What sort of album was it by Petrucci?
I assume it was classical. I'm not really sure. I never listened to it. Just I remember the cover, and it said Petrucci, and it said the first printer of music, and I'm not sure what the actual content was. I don't remember listening to it.
What was the first album that you bought yourself then, just to get
right.
To get to know what you were really into yourself? What was the first album you bought?
The first time I remember actually going to the mall, to a record store, and buying an album was Zeppelin, In Through the Outdoor. I don't know, just got into that.
Was it special, buying the album?
Yeah, it was kind of, I felt like, I felt powerful that I bought my own album, It's always a nice experience. But, before that I had other things given to me, or things as gifts, or I'd borrow friends, or whatever. Yeah. I was never a huge record collector, per se. Certain bands that I kind of drifted towards and got really into, and then, of course, I got really into guitar playing, so that sort of took over.
Okay. Took over, you said, guitar playing. Really easy question, I hope. The first riff for you. What was the first riff that you actually could play that you thought, well, now I'm...
The first riff I ever played was Hey Hey My My, Neil Young. Yeah. It's a very simple guitar part, and I was hanging out at my friend's house, actually at Kevin Moore, our first keyboard player, his house, and there was a bunch of guys jamming, and I didn't really play. I was pretty young, and they're like, hey, play this riff, it's really easy. Yeah. And I played that.
Well, you started out with him, and then with John, and with Mike. Mm-hmm. How good were you back then. So even before, pre your first album? Or what
Yeah.
was it?
Well, John and myself, Kevin and John, we grew up together in our hometown on Long Island, and we were amongst a large community of musicians. You know, a lot of kids played. I don't know what it was. For some reason, there were tons of bands. There were always parties to go to and play and jam sessions. It was a big part of how I developed my skills as a guitar player. But even with all those bands and all those people, myself and Kevin and John, we kind of just slowly, we sort of rose up as being like the known guys, you know, the known band, and actually.
How come? How come?
Oh, how come?
How come do you think?
Because we were like totally into it. We'd practice for 6 hours a day. We would, you know, we were just completely obsessed. Yeah, you know, some of the other guys, there were a lot of guys that were really good, but I don't think they were as like hardcore obsessed about it as we were.
So you became a bit more well known?
Yeah, we did, and then you know, John and I applied to Berklee College, and we ended up getting in and going there straight out of high school, and that's where we met Mike. So we were like 18 years old.
What did you want to do at that school? What were your goals when you were?
I wanted to be a professional musician. I wanted to be a performer, and you know, I went there because I heard that Steve Vai went there, and you know, certain guys that I looked up to, and that's the career path I wanted to take. You know, I wanted to be a professional musician, performer.
But were you also actually writing your own songs back then?
Yeah,
Okay.
we were. Yeah, we had our own songs. I was writing lyrics, and you know, it all started pretty early.
No, but it could be that maybe you were saying, well, I'd like to be more of a performer than maybe a creator. For you, it's always both ways.
Yeah, you know, I just kind of looked up to certain bands at that age, right? When I was 17, 18, I was a big Rush fan, Iron Maiden fan, and I just wanted to do that. I wanted to play rock and roll and make music my career and be in a band, and that was what I ended up doing. So it worked out.
It's been, many albums since 1989, your first
Sure.
album. Will you be doing something special 25 years after your first album?
You know, we were actually on this tour, we're doing a few special things to make this experience and the set something like really unique for our fans and for ourselves as well. So the set kind of pays tribute to some albums that are you know, receiving anniversaries this year. The Awake album, the Scenes from Memory album. First album, When Dream a Day Unite, was 25 years ago as well. We're not really featuring that record so much on this tour. I'm sure we'll do something in the future, but we have a very unique and special set design, and people seem to be really enjoying it. The European tour we're currently on is the first leg of the tour, and the feedback that we've gotten so far has been really positive.
What do you hear when you listen to the first album?
I hear young guys that didn't know what they were doing.
Yeah, it's true, yeah.
Yeah, you know, we went into the studio, we were really young. It was our first album, we had like no time to do it, no experience. I didn't even have, the amp I used wasn't even mine, the guitars I borrowed, you know.
Yeah.
We had fun.
And the songwriting for you?
Yeah, it just seems like it's just that of youth, you know, not as developed, I think, as it is now. I mean, I think there's some good moments in the songs, and I think that we certainly established the style that would take us through, you know, the rest of our career. You know, that sort of progressive metal sound was absolutely established on the first record, but you could definitely hear the immaturity, you know, as musicians, as players, as writers, and you know, personally, I think it's gotten better throughout the years. Just